Hey, what are you doing here? Well, since you're here, why don't we talk about the Panasonic AG AC 90? I'll bet you can't wait to hear more about this fabulous piece of equipment. Well, let's actually find it. Here's a chair, and look what I've got right here, the Panasonic AG AC 90 video camera. I'm Dr. Gary Gould. Welcome back to the studio, and welcome back to learning about being fabulous and professional in the world of video. Now, the manual, well, here it is right here. Forget that. I'm going to go through everything that we need to know today on how to get this camera to work and to be fabulous with it. Now, you might say, you know, I'm not good with technology, so I think I'll just stick with my smartphone. Or you know what, I'll use one of those DSLRs because I know how to use that as well. But that's kind of like going to the rental car place and saying, you know what, just give me a bicycle because I know the bicycle. You're paying lots of money to be here. We want you to get to know pro-level stuff, and this camera's worth about $5,000 or $6,000. The bag alone is about $600, right? That's like a Louis Vuitton bag in blue and fabulous. Let me tell you a quick story about this particular camera. We've used a camera similar to this for many years. The one previous to this was very similar, but instead of being an SD card reader, it took videotape. One of our students, Josh Wingrove, when he graduated, he got a job right out of the door at the Globe and Mail as a reporter. He sent me a note a couple months later, and he said, Gary, I just want to say thank you for teaching me how to use the Panasonic camera because it's the same one they use at the Globe and Mail. And he said, I'm hoping to get on with the video team. Now, what you may not know is Josh Wingrove found some fame last while ago because he was in Parliament Hill when the shooting happened, and he's the one that took that famous footage running down the hall towards the shooter. And now he's doing quite well. Saw him interviewed on CNN and all sorts of other places because he knew and understood video. But video isn't just about how to take pictures and how to frame stuff. That's a super important part of it. But understanding the technology in the back end also is as well. However, this can be really boring. I know that. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's not good information. It's sort of like if you know how to do an oil change with your car, it's boring, or some people like it, I'm sure, but it's not everybody's thing. So I appreciate the fact that learning how to use this camera isn't for everybody, but what I'm going to suggest, you've paid for the car, the Mercedes, the Porsche, the Firebird here, don't take the bicycle. Try it if you want, but if you can, take this one, and you're going to find that there's lots of things about this camera that are pretty easy and straightforward. You do need to know how the camera works because the most frustrating thing is if you don't learn all the knobs and buttons properly and you get out there and you do something wrong, either it's white balance or the whole thing is blurry. That's really frustrating, and it's a complete journalistic deal breaker. Nobody wants out of focus stuff. So anyways, here we go. This bag here is made for TV. It is not waterproof though. You will notice that the zipper, it does have a flap, but water can still get in with that. So please, when you're using the camera, keep the camera dry, and please be very careful to keep the bag out of the rain as well. But we've got lots of things in here that we're going to look at. So in the side pocket we have mic cables. I'll come to those in a minute, but let's start by pulling out the video camera, and I'm going to hold it up here so you can see it. So the camera itself is, it records onto SD cards, so you're going to need to provide an SD card. Now there is a spot for 2 SD cards, so you can put in 2 of them. What we recommend is if you're working on a team, and actually let me give you the close-up of that. So we look at the back, and there's a slot here that you just slide out with your thumb, and you'll notice that there's 2 SD card slots, so you can put your SD card in either one of those slots. If you're working on a team, we recommend that you each put one in, and then we can set the camera to do what's called a backup recording, and it will record the same video to both cards so that I can then take my card home and your partner can take their card home. And if you're working on a project, that's very helpful if somebody is sick and can't make something and they have all your stuff, that's a problem. But there's the big hole back here. This is where the battery goes. So we go back into the camera bag, and you're going to see that there is a battery that comes with the camera. We always recommend that you take 2 batteries. You'll get one when you sign it out, but it's always a good idea to ask for a second one. And then you're going to notice there's some sort of groove marks on the bottom of the battery there. We're just going to drop it into the hole here and then click it in place. So I'll show you that again. And the release button is right here. So battery release and lift up. So what I do is I just put the battery in and then click it down into place. Okay, lift up. And again, the battery grooves you want to put towards the bottom. Battery technology is the weak spot with all electronics these days. If there's no batteries, it's completely dead. I'll come back to camera 1 and talk to you over here for a second. Thank you, Angela. My colleague Angela is working the switcher today, so thanks to her. But the thing with battery technology is batteries, when they get cold, they die. And so what we recommend is when you go out to shoot, take the batteries, if it is in the bag and it's a cold day, put the batteries in your pocket, but put it in a pocket, say a jeans pocket or inside jacket pocket, but somewhere where the battery will be warm, and put it in a pocket that has nothing else in it. No loose change, no keys. Sometimes if something gets jammed in there, it can actually activate the battery and get really hot in your pocket. So put the battery in a pocket that has nothing else in it and keep it warm. And then when you get to where you're going, you're going to take the battery out and put it into the back of the camera. So batteries, when they get cold, they die and they do not come back when you warm them up. Okay, I'm going to click that into place. Once I've done that, I can turn the camera on. So I'll come back over here so you can see that. The on button is right here. It's a little bit weird. I'll close this. You're going to push the button down and slide it up. So there's a little kind of gray tab here that needs to be pushed down, and then you're good to go. All right? And that's activated and ready to go. Now I hear beeping, so I'll show you if we once the camera's on, I can look through the viewfinder at the back, but we prefer the side viewfinder here at the front, which just pulls out like this. And then when I flip it around, you'll see that the camera is actually on, but it's beeping because it needs an SD card. You're going to need an SD card. Now an SD card, they come in different shapes and sizes. You want to get the standard SD card, not the micro, not the mini, not the one that plugs into the adapter, just the straight up, old-fashioned, well maybe not so old-fashioned, SD card that looks like this. Now if you look real close, in the corner, you see how that says C and then 10? That's class 10. That means it is a faster speed than some. Other ones, like this one, even though it's 32 gig, you say, oh, that's better, isn't it? But if you look closely, that is a class 6. Do you see that? So this one isn't as good as the 16 gig, and the 32 gig probably cost more money. Later we're going to talk about autofocus. Here's what autofocus does. So see how it's focusing on the foreground and then the background goes blurry? But we like manual focus. We'll talk about that later in this workshop, but manual focus is our friend because then you, the shooter, can determine what is in focus. We're not necessarily endorsing Lexar. I don't really care what you use. Any of the SD cards out there are fine. And we're also going to recommend that you format the card every time you put it into the camera. Strangely, when we did our workshop first with this particular card, this one did not work. So I'm also going to show you how this camera takes 2 cards. And so if you're working on a group, everybody must bring an SD card because they don't always work all the time. I'm going to put it into the back of the camera, but make sure the camera is turned off when you put the SD card in. So I'm going to turn off the camera like that. Again, pushing the little gray button. It's a black button, but the little gray button in the middle is like a little lock. And then after that, I'm going to take my SD cards, put it in like this, right, with the groove and the label on the top, and slide it in. Now, there's a little slider on the side. You see the little white or gray slider switch? If that's in the wrong position, you will not be able to record on an SD card. So that's actually a little lock. They build into the SD card, so if you want to save what's on there, slide it down and it will not allow any recording onto the SD card. Put it in there, close up this, and now when I turn the camera back on here, I should be able to see. What does that say? It says the card is perfect. No, it said check the card. So clearly it didn't like my card, but that's okay. I'm not worried about it. So what's happened is the card, it didn't like the card, and so I will have to format the card. So I'm going to show you how to do that over here. I'm going to format the card. I want to make sure every time I use it, I format it. But remember, when you format the card, everything on it is completely erased. So make sure that there's nothing you want on this SD card when you're going to format it. Now, there's a couple ways of doing it. There's a menu button right here, and I push the menu button here, and the menu will come up on the screen, and then I'll bring this in closer. Then I can go to Other Function, Format Card, and then I want SD card 1, and then Format Card Yes, and then it will format the card. Now I'm not going to format this one because I'm not sure what's on it, so I'm going to hit Format No, but you will hit Format Yes, and remember when you do that, it erases everything on the card, and then I can hit Exit here. And then it'll tell me the time, the record time up here in the corner. So this particular one has 19 minutes of record time. But you say, well, hey, Gary, you never formatted it. No, the card will record onto a card without formatting it, but we recommend you format it so you get the full size of the card. So 19 minutes on a 16 gig card is a very small part of the card. While I'm showing you the monitor, I'm going to show you a few other things here. See, it says HE1440. This is the record format that we use right here. If I touch the screen again, it brings up the menu, and I'm going to hit Menu, and I want to make sure that the record setup is always set to HE1080-60i, okay? If you look at the options on here, there's only one HE, the rest are PH and PS and all the other ones. RTA and other programs use other formats. They use PH formats, and you do not want to record on that. So because these are shared cameras, you have to check it every single time and make sure that you're recording in the HE1080i format. So double check that that is the way you want. And you see how it says 2 card slots? I'm going to turn that to on, and I'm going to select backup. And I'm only going to do that if I have 2 cards in here. So my card and my friend's card, or my classmate's card. So that what will happen then is the camera will back up the material on the camera to the 2 cards, not just to the 1. Now, if I leave it in 2 card format like that and in backup and hit exit like this, see it wants a second card, but that's okay. And if you look up here in the corner, it's flashing. See how it's flashing? It's saying you're missing a second card. And it's looking, see the 2 slots right there? That's showing me that it's, or that those 2 arrows mean it wants to record to 2 cards. Up along the top is your time code. 02 is the frame count. We use NTSC time code. I'm trying to make this not complicated, but the time code that we use are frames, seconds, minutes, and hours. So it's 12 hours, 9 minutes, 1 second, and then 02 frames. And there's 30 frames, and that frame count will read 0 to 29, 0 to 29, 0 to 29. But that's for another day. Okay, so on the back, you're going to notice a couple of things. One, you've got the something that looks like a video camera, and this looks like a play button. This is a switch. This allows you to switch between the recording. So when it's in camera mode, I'm going to get a picture out here, but when I switch it down, it's going to go into playback mode, and it's going to show me all the clips that I've recorded. And if I push one, the clip will come up here, and then I can play the clip right here. Not a bad idea when you're shooting to make sure, after you try recording, push the camera into playback mode and see that you got the clip. And then I can play it and fast forward through there if I would like. Over here, you see your battery indicator. It's showing me full power. I would always circle check my equipment when I pick something up from the cage. Do not leave without making sure that everything works. Turn on the camera. Does the power show full battery? You might take a second battery as a backup just in case. And again, keep your batteries warm because when they get cold, they die. This is your steady shot. It helps eliminate some shakage in the camera. The hand right there. This says ATW. This means auto tracking white balance. I'm going to show you how to white balance the camera. You see how my jacket is white? Well, when the camera's in automatic white balance, it will make white look white and not yellow or blue. And it's pretty good on this camera. So you can leave it in auto tracking white balance. I will show you how to set that. and some of these other buttons as well. So I'm going to run through all the different knobs and buttons on the camera, then I'm going to show you how to set the camera up. The lens is here. It should come with a lens cover, so please make sure if you have one, you return it. The other thing I like to do is I always check to see if the lens has grime or gunk on it. And the way I do that is I just turn it, like angle it to the light, and I can actually see that there's fingerprints on this. Now, I'm not going to rub it with my shirt or a cloth. I would ask the people down at the EDC if they have a lens cleaning kit and they can clean the lens for you, but you should check for this. This is an electronic piece of equipment. Don't get it wet. If it's pouring rain, don't just cover it with a book or something. This camera is worth about $5,000, $6,000, so be very careful with it. You don't want to drop it. You don't want to get it wet, and if you get it wet, it's almost worse than dropping it because you'll fry all the electronics in it if you're not careful. So please make sure you're diligent about that. Same thing too with this the flip screen. It's a great feature to have, but if you bang on it wrong when somebody's walking past it, you could break it. It's meant to twist this way, so the person I'm shooting can see the screen, so I'm rotating it like this. It does not rotate this way, all right? Just in, out, and then this way. All right, the zoom control, there's three of them actually. There's one on the top. Actually, let's go back to this camera over here. That's great, Angela, thank you. So the zoom control is right here. Let me move in closer. This one's really slow, but you'll see, actually, I can do it this way. So telephoto, this is wide angle this way and zoom in. This one's really slow. There's a better one on the hand grip right here. And this one, so forward. So this is the front of the lens, right? And so the front is zoom in and the back is zoom out. Zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out. And this one's pretty good. This one's nice and fast. While I'm here too, you see this little camera button? That'll allow you to take a still picture. If you're desperate you forget a camera or you don't have a smartphone or something with you, you can actually take a still picture by pushing that button. That is not a record button. Only the red buttons are record button, here and on the thumb grip, which is here. Okay, these are your record buttons, there and here. And so this is zoom here, and the other zoom, these three rings here, you have your focus right here. So I can focus my camera, and then I've got my zoom. This is my manual zoom here, and this is my iris or aperture if you're familiar with photography. This first ring, how much brightness comes into the camera. This is my focus ring, and the middle ring is my zoom ring. I don't know if you can see that very well, but that will zoom in and out manually, okay? And the auto zoom, the one we recommend is the one on the hand grip right here, okay? You'll also notice these audio connectors here. These are called XLR. You'll have learned about those from Angela, I'm sure at some point, but you'll see input 1 and input 2. We're gonna put our microphone cable into input 1. So let's actually do that now. So I'm going to come back to camera 1 over here. In the camera bag they're going to give you all sorts of bits and pieces, but you need to be proactive. That's a good tip in life as well. Proactive. You have to decide and look for yourself. Don't just take what people give you. Say, hey, where's the batteries? But say it nicely. Don't say it like that. Say, hey, there's only one battery here. Can I get a second battery? And then they might say, sure, why not? Or let's say you don't say anything and you take this microphone cable that they give you. Well, look how short it is, right? And I happen to know that's just not long enough, because if I'm plugging it into the camera and I want to have my reporter who's over your way try to use this, it's not long enough. It's just too short. So I'm like, oh, may I have a longer XLR cable? And they will say, why, of course you may have a longer XLR cable. And I happen to have one right over here. And then I have a lot more to this one's all messed up now, but it's a lot longer and will allow me to interview somebody from a greater distance away. The other thing that you're going to get is a lavalier mic, which comes in this fabulous box. Now, the lavalier mic is a microphone like the one, like the one I'm wearing here. It's a tie clip mic, and it clips onto your shirt or your top, whatever you want. This is a bit tricky if somebody's wearing like a turtleneck or a t-shirt, but these are great microphones because they have a really nice rich sound. Can you hear it as I talk? Listen to the bass. It's really great. It picks up a really low frequency because it's right up against my chest cavity, and the chest cavity has a nice resonance to it, and that sound is going to resonate through this little microphone capsule into the camera and record a really nice sound. The only thing you have to know is this is a really thin cable, and you want to be very careful not to, I'll move in closer, really close. You want to be careful how you treat this microphone. You don't ever want to drag it. Sometimes I see people dangling it like this. Don't do that. Or sometimes you've got the mic on like I have, and then they pull the cable, which and it's not very good because it can damage the cable. The connector is called an XLR connector. You can see that right there. Okay, there's two different types. The one is for the microphone. I'm going to clip that in there like that. You're going to listen and you hear a click. Okay, make sure you hear the click. And then I always test the microphone like this. Give a little snug tug like that, boom, and we're good to go. And the other end I'm going to plug into the camera, and that is going to allow me to record sound into the Panasonic camera. Again, a lot of the features on this camera are on a lot of the pro-level cameras. And some of the features on this camera that are outboard as a button are actually built into smartphones and other things like that. You just don't know because a lot of it the camera's doing for you. But in the pro level world, knowing how to do stuff yourself is always better. Okay? So I'm going to just show you quickly with the microphones. The microphones are going to plug into the outlets onto the side. I'm going to select input number 1. So here's input number 1. I'm going to plug the microphone into that, and I can now plug the other end into my XLR. The one thing though that I'm going to watch for as well is on the top here, there's a little panel. I'm going to open that up, and in that panel you're going to see input 1, that should be set to microphone. The 48 volt should be set off, and input 2 should be set to microphone as well, and 48 volt should be set off. Now what is that little button right there? Well, that's you're telling the camera. See how the light didn't change? Another reason to light properly. When I'm in the shadow, dark and horrible, but out here, and this light's too strong, so I'm going to stand a little bit over here. See the nice balance? So watch your lighting. But this camera here, if I'm going to plug in with a microphone, I just tell the camera it's a microphone. But let's say I'm at a press conference and I want to plug into the soundboard. I can go to the sound person. I say, hey, do you have a press feed or a media feed? They say, sure, you can plug in. And then you can say, is it a line or a mic level input or output? And they'll say, oh, it's a mic line or a mic output. Then you can switch this to microphone. But if it's a line output, you switch this to line. Line is like a piece of equipment, like a CD player. If you still have one of those, you probably don't. But that's anything that's electronic that has a strong signal, something that's coming out of a mixer board. It's got power, so it's a much stronger signal than the microphone's going to do. So the camera just needs to know, what is it going to be? Is it going to be a microphone or a line input? And the camera volume, we're going to control them at the back right here. We got the top and the bottom one. Those are going to control our volumes. And we're going to set our inputs. Channel 1 goes to input 1. Channel 2 goes to internal. And that allows us to get the sound, the ambient sound. Okay, audio, it's our friend. And one of the things that will help you get good audio is a pair of decent headphones. You don't have to spend a lot of money. $10, $15, $20 is fine. But you should get a pair of headphones that go over your ears so that you don't have to wear those earbuds. And especially here when we're working in groups, we don't like to share earphones, okay? So be careful of that. Headphone, great. It eliminates the outer sound and allows me to focus on the sound that I am recording. Without good sound, you have a major problem. One of the reasons we love these particular cameras over the DSLRs is because of the good audio inputs. This is a really solid technology. Mini plugs, mini jacks, you know from your own iPhones, your iPods and all these other things, a little jack ultimately breaks, right? Because it's not meant for heavy usage, and sound is critical to what we do. Okay, here's the next part. Stay with us. Open a window, turn up the music. Here we go. So once I plug the headsets in, I can now hear what the camera is, the sound of the camera, and I'm going to hear different things out of each ear because one ear is the camera mic, the front one, and the other ear is going to pick up the lav mic, which is actually clipped onto my shirt here, and it's coming out of this ear. So left and right are on, back here. Input 1 is your left side, so that's this is going to be on the left side, and the background sound is going to be on the right side. Headset volume, I'm going to show you headset volume and VU meter over here. Okay, so I'll show you the headphone, how to adjust the headset volume. Again, remembering this is all a touchscreen screen. I touch here and I see the headphone jack. I push that button and there's my volume. I can go up or down from here and it will adjust it for me. Now, if I don't have the headsets plugged in, if I unplug the headphone, you will see the headphone jack disappear. Do you see that? So touch it again. There's no headphone jack. When I plug it in, the headphone jack appears as an indicator, so I can now adjust the headset volume. Now these lines here, this is what we call the VU, or the volume units meter at the bottom. The bottom one, the lower one, is the camera mic, and the top one is the lavalier, or the plug-in microphone. And you'll see, I'm going to get real close here, there's two lines that go up and down. Okay, so two vertical lines, it's just the edge of my finger here. Actually, I'm going to turn the bottom volume down. So remember I said these buttons at the back, you can't just leave them on, like typically 12 o'clock is pretty good, but you're going to have to adjust them because some people talk loud and some people talk quietly. So what you want to do is see the top line there? That's where you want it to be, just so that the volume is just going over the vertical line. Let me just turn off the bottom one for a second so you can see it. So this is the top line here. It's maybe a little loud, but I'm going to just adjust it so that it's just going over the vertical line this vertical line right here. That's channel 1, and that is the volume from the microphone. The background sound typically is going to be much lower because it's further away from the sound source, so it should be much lower, kind of like what you see here. And if we're just recording traffic noise and stuff, it may be really low. You might only get a couple of the bars here. So this is your volume units meter, and again, this is something that you have to monitor. Don't just set it and forget it because the sound may be it might be poor. And the headset volume is just what your headphone hears. This is not record volume. It might sound really loud to you, like, oh, it's way loud, but really this other button here is the one that these volume meters are really what we need to watch, okay? So be very careful of these things right here. Just a quick review too. So we put the battery in the back, we put the card slot in, or the card in the slot. We turn the camera on by pushing the little gray button and sliding the black button up, and then we formatted the card and we set it to two card recording if we wanted that, and then we plug in the microphone and we set the sound level, and we also just make sure that these buttons are set correctly. And the other thing we wanted to make sure that we're always recording with the HE1440 format. Now that is a high definition format, but it's just the way it compresses the image. It's different from how some of the other programs here at Ryerson do it. So, okay, so actually while I'm going to stop at this point. I'm going to show you how to set up the tripod, so I can put this on the tripod and then I can just run through the rest of the buttons fairly quickly. Before I actually do that, I'm going to unplug this, and I'm just going to show you quickly too, if you have to hand hold the camera, we don't recommend it because it's so shaky handheld. If you look at the shot here that you see in front of you, this is rock steady. See, perfectly steady. It's not shaking. I'm not bouncing around. But the camera, the way I recommend you hand hold it is, what I do is I put my hand under like this and I kind of grab the camera underneath, and I've looped my thumb through. You can see it on this shot. So I've looped my thumb through and I've grabbed it. I'm going to push it up against my chest like this. Okay. See, I'm tucking it in almost like a football. If you play football, my arm is bent and I'm protecting the camera, and then I'm going to use this viewfinder here to watch my shot, right? This gives me a full heads up, right? When you're recording though, one of the things we talk about is always shooting eye level to the subject, only for interviews. So if I'm interviewing somebody, I'm going to have to make sure the camera's eye level, and then I'm going to adjust my hand hold from this to the standard like this, all right? But again, I'm going to lock my arm in here, 45-degree angle, and I'm going to push it up against my shoulder and try to hold the camera steady this way. But again, I have full view, right, by doing it this way. So let's do the turnaround. It's like Vogue fashion magazine all over again, but nice and steady. But this I find hurts my hand after a while. This is adjustable, by the way. This strap, you can adjust it to your hand if it doesn't fit, so you can tighten it or loosen it. Sometimes actually I'll put my XLR cable in here and then fold this back over. But what I recommend is just make sure you have a grip on it. And going back to the wide shot over here, I'm going to spread my legs out nice and wide like this. Maybe back up so we can see it. Okay, wide like this. I'm going to push it into my shoulder, and then I'm going to control everything from here. And I have a record button on the top. So I'm going to do my camera like this. Okay, so that's handheld, but we don't like handheld. It's not our friend. It's really shaky. It doesn't compress well, so we don't recommend it for what you're doing in this class. One of the things that people complain about is the tripods, but let me tell you how it used to be. The tripods used to be probably certainly twice as heavy as this and possibly more, and they didn't have this nice bag with this strap. I know they're a hassle to carry around, but a nice steady shot makes a big difference. Now, if you can't take a tripod, do put it on something, whether it's the floor or a table, a chair, a stool, something to keep the camera steady when you're taking some shots. You will notice a difference, and your viewers will thank you. So the tripod comes in this beautiful bag. The tripods are made by a company called Sackler. Sackler is to tripods what Louis Vuitton is, or actually let's try Louboutin, what Louboutin is to shoes. And so, actually you'll see these have red feet like Loubou's. But the tripod is your friend. It really is, it's not bad in terms of the weight, in terms of how it used to be. The Sackler is pretty light. I'm just going to show you with the bag too. You'll notice that part of the bag has this black padding on it. This is where the head needs to go when you're putting it back in the bag. So you put the feet in first, and then the head will rest in the little pillow for the tripod. Now, before I actually spread the legs out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen the tripod legs like this. I start at the bottom just because I find that the easiest. You have to be very careful with these top pipes because you can pinch your fingers quite easily. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to figure out the height that I want it at, and then keep the legs closed like this. And what that does is it allows me to set the height pretty accurately without having to use the leveler that's built in. So that's about the height I want it at. I'm going to spread the tripod out. This thing in the middle, this thing is called a spreader. And this one it starts out fairly narrow. There's knobs here in the middle. I'm going to loosen these because you want the tripod to be as spread out as possible. That just gives you the most stability. Remember what I said when you were doing your handheld? Spread your legs out so you can get control, get a little bit more balance. That's true if you ride the subway. For those of you that don't touch the metal poles, right? Subway surfing, right? You want to spread your legs out on the ground, and that makes for a nice steady shot. So we're doing the same with the tripod. We're going to spread out the legs on it so that it's nice and steady. There's a handle here. There's a knob right here on the side. I can loosen that and then raise up the arm like this. This is adjustable. Typically the arm goes at the back of the tripod, and there's actually an arrow on the top of the head. And if there's also a little bubble on here as well. Actually, let me show you on camera too. Can you get it on 2 inch? Oh, that's great. So I can loosen up the arm here like this. This typically goes to, this is the back. There is a little arrow on here. I don't know if you can see it. You can see it actually right here. So that's forward, right? It's pointing down. This is the front, is that way. And this is adjustable, these buttons here, and these buttons, this wheel here. What this is your tension control. So the more the number, so that you have a 3 is really tense, 2 is less, 1 is less, and 0 is completely off. And the same is true with your pan. So this is called tilt. Up and down is tilting. Pan is this way. And if I dial off to 0, you'll see the numbers on here. It will just spin around and it's loose. Now it's bouncing around because there's a little knob right here. And if you turn this knob, the camera is completely loose. But they build this is a sort of a protector for the tilt. So it builds a spring into the tripod head so that the camera doesn't fly forward and then break. And there's also a spirit bubble. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. It's in here. It's like one of those little circles with a bubble in it, and you try to center it up. Under here, you can actually adjust it. Let me see if I can show it to you. No, but you can sort of see it right here. right there. Okay, so you want to try to level it up, and if the tripod legs aren't level, I can adjust it with this. So just finger loose, finger tight on this, and that will then allow me to center up and tighten that up. Okay, so once we've got the tripod set up, we're going to slide the plate onto the tripod head. I'll show you on this camera over here. And so what you're going to do is I'm going to, there's arrows on the here, you can see it on the plate. And remember the arrow is on here. So I just line up the arrows and slide it in. Now it's not going because this knob is too tight. This is good that this happens so you can see this. Always circle check your stuff. Before you leave Ryerson, you should take all the stuff out, set it up, and make sure that it works. Again, see, this is problematic. And so you don't want to get in a situation where it's not working. So this red button, this is the release, and it should automatically slide in. So I think we fixed it. So don't get worried. I can tell from looking at this particular knob, it's warped. So somebody has dropped it and broken this knob so that it's warped. Now it still works, but just be careful of stuff like that. So when the camera sits on the tripod, see how it's sort of back? It's leaning to the back. The lens is the heaviest thing, so what I try to do is find a balance. See, so that it's sitting naturally, and then I'm going to tighten it here. To release it, I'm going to loosen this, slide it back, and push this red button, and that will slide out of the tripod. Okay, I'm going to go through these buttons fairly quickly and discuss the various features of the camera, and then you can go out and try it. Hey, how'd I get in here? I'm trapped. That's probably how you feel right about now. You're like, oh, brother, there's so much technology. Let me just say quickly, I'm not a giant techno fan. I think some stuff is cool, but I'm all about how do I use this? And I'm going to tell you from years of doing this, knowing how the knobs and buttons work have saved me 100 times and have also made me money. So if you know how to work the stuff, please forgive me. I know this is just really like walking in glue, and I feel it too, and you don't have to sit under the hot lights that I do. So I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as possible, but there is a reason to learn what the camera does because lots of people don't know, and if you know, that gives you the advantage. So please bear with me. Even if you watch this video over the course of 2 months, you should follow along. So what I'm going to do is I've put myself in the monitor. So this is actually the monitor, what you see around me here of the camera, and then I will refer to the buttons on the side of the camera and show you what they do. And again, I know this is tough and probably boring as blazes. I had to stop the camera because I fell asleep, but stay with me, okay? And we'll go through this as fast and hopefully as helpful as possible. So what we're going to do is I'm going to just remind you, the camera can be in full automatic mode. That button right here, IA stands for Intelligent Automatic. Who cares what that stands for? Automatic does everything for you. Except in our world, we share the cameras. So some of the cameras, when it's in the Intelligent Automatic mode, it does the autofocus for you too, and some of them it's manual focus. So if this is not your thing, technology is not your thing, first of all, congratulations to making it to this point in the video. Believe me, I get it. But the IA is a good place to start, okay, for this particular camera. But watch the focus. Now, what's wrong with autofocus? We don't like autofocus because, especially when you're trying to do something that's static and people walking through the frame, then as you're walking through the frame, the camera's focus is changing, so the subject's going in and out of focus, which sucks and says amateur. Really and truly, don't do that. So in the excuse me, in the professional world, we love manual focus. This front wheel here, this is your focus. Am I going blurry? The way you set the focus on a camera manually is really super easy. I know you're used to the world of just touching the screen and it autofocuses onto the person if you use a smartphone. But in the real world, we use this beautiful ring right here. So you're going to zoom in on the camera using the rocker switch over here. This is the zoom right there. Zoom in right on the subject's eyes. There's my eye. And then, let me get my eye, and then turn the wheel to focus. That will get the camera into focus. You also can see in the corner of the viewfinder, that says MF and then a number. MF stands for manual focus. If that says AF, then that's in autofocus. But you can see, that's actually just my mouth. Look at how, that's really weird. Now it's really creepy. Sorry about that. From now on, I will just be the giant mouth in the side of the screen. But as I turn, I'm going to try to focus the camera this way. But Gary, it's not focusing. What's going on? What's up, Doc? What's with that? What's up, Doc? So what I'm going to do is you have to back up. The camera is just too physically close to the subject. So you want to be about 4 feet minimum. I don't know if that's focused or not. It's hard to tell from where I'm sitting. About 4 feet from the subject in order to focus the camera. But you're going to zoom in on the subject's eye, this eye, I guess. Either one, focus, and then zoom out. And once you've done that, you can then adjust your shot back to the one you want. But you've set the focus. That is a great pro-level thing. How do you set the focus? Zoom in, focus on the eye, and zoom out. And what happens if it doesn't focus? Then you are what? You are too close. Like me, I'm sitting right next to the camera to do this particular demonstration. And again, forgive me if it's too close. But anyways, I think you get the gist of it. So this camera button here, automatic, does everything for you. Automatic white balance, focus, aperture, or as we call it in the TV world, iris. Now, some of you say, okay, I'm used to automatic. I get that from my smartphone and all my other cameras. I want to learn more. I'm paying money to learn more. And yes, you are. So let's take you to the next level. We're going to switch it from intelligent automatic to manu. Manu means manual, which means you have complete control. Now, wait a minute. The minute you switch it to manu or manual, it doesn't automatically put everything. Oh, you can actually see the shift. See? It's doing something to one thing, but it doesn't automatically take control of everything, give you control of everything. So when it's in manual, you can put it in auto iris, which is this button here. This is your aperture control. You could have autofocus, but don't stop. Don't touch that. Only in manual focus. And remember, it says it right here, manual focus. That's your friend, okay? But make sure it's focused. Let's say you have problems, you don't wear your glasses that day or whatever, then automatic focus is better than nothing. But please, please be careful. And if it looks blurry, it is blurry. It is blurry. If it looks blurry, it is. And don't go too close because it's creepy. Okay, so looking right here. Iris control, that is how bright the camera is. Now I'm wearing a white lab coat, so it's going to be what we call overexposed. It's going to be too bright. And so there's two ways of fixing that. One, crop the person tighter. So you're going to zoom in and tighten up so there's less of the white lab coat and more of their face. The other thing that I really like is this button back here called the zebra line, okay? Zebras are your friends. And if you were ever a fan of the zoo with zebras, they're beautiful. Who doesn't love zebras, right? Madagascar all over again. Okay, so zebra right here. So when you push the zebra buttons, watch what happens here in the screen. So first it says zebra off, right? Then zebra's to 80%, zebra's 100%, marker on, zebra's off. So it's actually a where's the camera? This way, 4 position switch. Marker, you're going to ignore that. But what we want to do with the zebra is we want to put it, oh, I did something there with the digital zoom, but anyways, okay. If you're shooting a human being, you're going to put it to zebras at 80%. And anything that's reflective or that's too bright, you'll see lines, and that's typically showing you that that part of the person's face is overexposed. Let's try with this sheet here. I don't know, can you see the lines? Like, it doesn't record the lines, it just alerts you. It's basically saying, camera person, this is too bright. This part of the screen is typically too hot. Doesn't necessarily mean it's overexposed. It's just a warning that certain spots are really hot and bright. And typically on the face, you're going to get the forehead, the nose, basically the T-zone. As I start to sweat, I start to glisten. And when I start to glisten, people aren't listening. If you're glistening, they're not listening because they're looking at the greasy, sweaty, gross face that I have now presenting them because the light is reflecting off my face and it's going to be really shiny. Shiny doesn't necessarily mean greasy. It could be sweaty. Even dry skin, by the way, can be shiny just because of the nature of skin. Okay, so powder is always good if you're on camera. Typically when you're shooting, especially news, we don't powder people. For the documentaries, you might. For stand-ups, I would powder myself. But if I'm just doing hard news, I just got to watch the lighting. And I'm not going to adjust the iris ring to get rid of the lines if it's going to make their face look too dark. So if I have a zebra line on their nose or their forehead, I might adjust it a little bit, but I'm going to most likely live with it. But more times than not, it's not their face that's showing zebra lines, it's behind them. Always check the background first. Gary's rule number 1. Number one rule, check the background first. Is there a bright light? Is there a sign? Is there a lamp post? Something growing out of their heads? But what I see a lot of are windows. People shoot with the background way overexposed, and that's a problem because it's too bright. And so the zebra lines, when you leave them on, they're going to tell you, hey, this is too bright. So 80%, if they're shiny on 80% on the person's face, it's on the edge. It either could be overexposed or it's borderline too bright. And then if I push the zebra line again, I leave the zebras typically on 100%, and that shows me everything else. If anything is shiny and you see shimmering lines, it means this area is probably too hot. You know where you're going to see shiny lines? You're going to see shiny lines on the sky. You're going to see it in the background, windows, light bulbs, reflections off of people's glasses. The way you deal with those lines is typically you have to reposition the shot. I'm sorry, can I ask you to move over a foot or two? Can I ask you to stand over here? We just need to turn around a little bit because I've got a little bit of a hot spot in the background. So be careful of that. Zebra lines are your best friends, and they work in conjunction with the iris. And so the zebra lines here, I'm going to turn them on, and then I'm going to adjust the iris ring here, right? See how my face gets brighter or darker? Okay, now I'm blowing out, and now I'm just like the Phantom Menace. You probably don't know what that is. Neither do I, and I saw the movie. Okay, so what I'm going to do is you can leave it on auto iris, and the camera will do a pretty good job. But because I'm wearing a white lab coat, which is awesome, the problem with the white lab coat, it's going to be too bright, and you will have to adjust it. So I'm going to put it to manual iris, and then just bump up the brightness just a little bit so that my face is brighter, even though the lab coat is going to become overexposed. Anyways, I may have gone too long on that, but let me tell you this. One of the big problems that we see, two biggest problems are focus. People just, I don't know how you can get focus wrong. If it looks blurry, then what? It is blurry, right? And the other thing that we get wrong all the time is exposure. Now, I'm not talking about good lighting. What you see here is studio lighting, and lighting will be another video. But lighting is critical, but not just lighting. Once you've lit the person properly, because this is studio lighting here, nice light on my face, and then the aperture allows it to get brighter or darker. Aperture is what I call it in the photo world. Iris is what we call it in the TV world. So auto iris is okay in most cases. The other problem with auto iris is it will adjust up and down. If something bright comes into the screen, then it will, or if I put my hand up, you'll see the camera shifting. So typically we don't really like the auto iris. But it's okay. I usually like to, what I'll do is I'll set the iris up and then put it to manual and lock it in that position. So now I know if the person puts their hand up, the camera doesn't like start pulsating darker and brighter, which is probably what you were seeing as I was lifting my hand up earlier. Focus is here, okay? So auto manual focus, but we're gonna leave it in manual focus. Zoom in with the rocker switch on this side right here, right? Or use the zoom control here, right? There's your zoom control in the middle. Zoom in on the eyes and then focus and zoom out, okay? This one here is optical image stabilizer. That's fine. It takes some of the shake away, but it's not going to change your life either way, especially if you're using the tripod, which is our best friend. And this is the WB button. WB stands for white balance. Now, everything is, every light has a different color. Studio lighting is more of a red color. Outside, typically blue, depending what time of day it is. It can be reddish, it can be yellow. And what you want to do is you want to adjust for the light color. So you have to tell the camera what light color you're working under. So we do what's called a white balance. Again, forgive me for being so technically gobbledygook. I hate doing these workshops in some ways because they're so boring. But they will help you and make your stuff at the end of the day look fabulous. Have you ever taken a picture somewhere, even with your iPhone, and the color's off? It's because the camera hasn't properly white balanced. Now, you may know that, you may not. Or when you're selecting, sometimes with your phones or with cameras, you select like the little sun or the little Eiffel Tower with the stars, and you're telling it where you're shooting. Often in that, it's adjusting the color balance of the light. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to white balance the camera. Again, the camera has to be in the manual mode for all of these functions to work, including the zebras and the iris button. But we're going to go to the WB button, and I'm going to push that button. And when I push it, you're going to look in the top corner right here, okay? Look right there. It's going to be real hard for me to see, but you're going to have to follow along with me. Is that changing? Yeah, okay. So you can see the color changing too. So I think that says variable. That says auto ATW. ATW is auto tracking white balance. ATW is good about 80–85% of the time. Hey Gary, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. Flip it to ATW and it will adjust the color for you. But sometimes we get into what's called a mixed lighting situation, where you have our studio light or the field light that we brought with us, and you have sunlight coming in. You're mixing the light and the camera is not really sure what color to work with. So auto tracking white balance is pretty good, but if you want to be completely accurate, we're going to push the button until it says A channel. I cannot see that. I'm looking at it at a monitor. There it is there. The monitor is halfway across the room. So A channel, or it might say B channel, but either one. So you're going to program one of the white balance channels to tell it what color you're using. So I'm going to hold up something white. Typically we prefer like a blank piece of paper, but in a pinch this will work because it's just got black writing on it. But I'm going to hold up this piece of paper and then I'm going to push the WB button. So when I was selecting that button, I pushed it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 till I came to A channel. Then I stopped. Now I'm going to hold this up like this, and I'm going to push the button and hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, WB, OK. And now I've set my white balance and I'm good to go. So a shot that's improperly white balanced looks like garbage, and a properly colored balanced shot is great. Now you might say, I can fix that later. Oh, you can say that, but good luck doing that later. And when we're doing news, why would we waste our time trying to fix the white balance in Premiere Pro or Photoshop if I'm taking pictures, when I could be working on my script or editing or doing something else that's better because we forgot this one little thing. So white balance right there. So you're going to put it to auto tracking white balance if you're in a pinch. 80% of the time that's fine, but what you want to do is you want to learn pro level tips. And so we're going to switch that white balance to A channel. So push, 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 push. There's A channel. Press and hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom. White balanced. Okay, so anybody have any questions? That's a joke. Okay, these user buttons down here, ignore them. The bars, if you push them, that is for color bars, which gives you a good reference so you can see if this monitor is how it looks in terms of the color. And we like to record color bars too, because then when we play it back, you can also check your computer monitor. Sometimes people, by the way, this is the other problem with not doing a right white balance, is you might be fiddling around with the white balance in your editing suite or on your laptop, and then it turns out that your screen isn't set to the right color because it's set to, I don't know, warm or cool or something, and the white balance is messed up. So white balance has to do with the color of the light that you're shooting, and the camera needs to know what white is and then adjusts everything else accordingly. White balance and technology and all these knobs and buttons, they're your friends because it is boring to a lot of people, so most people don't bother to learn it. So if you learn it, that makes you what? More employable. White balance, you say, well, okay, I'll fix it later in the editing suite. Why? Why waste your time later trying to mess up, play around with the color correction when all it takes is a couple seconds in the field to do it properly? Or maybe your computer monitor's messed up back where you're editing and it's set to cool or warm and the white balance is all off and the stuff looks terrible. It's pro-level stuff that really makes you more employable. People say, do you understand what iris is? I remember one student told me she was working at CBC London and she was on the crew and she folded up one of the reflectors, right? Like this one right here. She did the twist because we teach her how to do it, and they're like, how do you know how to do that, right? Because it's a skill that most people don't have. So all of these buttons here, learn them, right? Iris control, that controls brighter or darker. I'm going to use that in conjunction with my zebra lines. The zebras are going to show me the hot spots in the screen. Again, I'm not always going to get rid of them because if it's bright on my nose, if I darken the whole shot up, my face might become too dark. And let me say this, really close to the camera, the brightness control does not make good lighting. It just means that it's better properly exposed, right? Good lighting involves properly setting up your light. So I'm going to grab this piece of paper, and let's say I go like this. Like now my eyes are in shadow, right? Is that good lighting? No, it's terrible because what? My eyes are in shadows. Or maybe one light is, there's a shadow in my face. Look at the shadow on my face. You might not think about that normally, but now you're going to think about that. No iris in the world is going to solve these shadow problems, right? You want to properly light somebody so they look fabulous. And fabulous is always employable, okay? So you can put it in auto iris and auto everything right there. See how it just takes control and fixes some of the issues I have? Nothing wrong with that. But what I'm going to recommend with time, get used to the manual settings, And while my face is trapped in this little screen, I'm going to show you a couple other things really quickly, and then we're going to be done, and you can get out and try this thing. So there's a button right here that says display, okay? So if you push that, everything on the screen around me goes away. So sometimes you get the camera and you turn it on and you go, hey, there's nothing there. We'll just push that button, not to worry, right there. Boom, everything comes back. These are all your friends. Everything you see in the screen here is your friend. So I can see, okay, it's in automatic. So watch the iris control. Where's my finger? Right here, okay? So, oops, it's all touchscreen. So if I switch it back, it goes from auto tracking white balance. Actually, it stayed on auto tracking white balance. So then I have to re-white balance the camera using the WB button. So manual's my friend. I can leave everything on automatic if I want, but it does give me the option to override things, all right? And the counter here, that's the thing at the top. See how it's changing over here, right there? Right, so I can change the counter. Typically you want to have a counter on so you know when you push record it's rolling. You'll also see if there's a card in there. It'll show you how much time is left on the card. It'll also show you your battery. Circle check your kit, because if you don't, you will inevitably regret that because something will be missing or something won't work. So there you go. I'm going to come back to the big screen. I'm going to snap my fingers and I'm going to be full screen and I'm going to finish up the workshop. Here we go. So that's the AC90, but again, you're not wasting your time because all of those features and buttons and stuff you'll find on many of the top of the line pro level cameras. You learn it, that makes you more employable. People want people with skills. Be a great writer. Be a great photographer. Get great with composition lighting. Watch your background. And know the knobs and buttons, because congratulations, you just made it through a pretty boring workshop, really. And I'm sorry about that. Knobs and buttons are not your friends. There are online, there's a manual, some material online that you can refer to about where are the different buttons. Please do check that on our website. We're happy to point you that way as well. And if you have, again, any questions, I don't know what to do, I'm lost, that made no sense to me, I feel like I want that time back, please come and see me or one of my colleagues will be happy to sit down with you, go through the camera with you. But the AC90 is a great camera. Last point, this has a 3-chip imaging system. That means there's 3 imaging devices to record and separate the color. 3 primary colors in TV are what? Red, green, blue. What does this camera record? 1 red, 1 green, 1 blue for really nice color separation. So much better than some of the other cameras that you can shoot with. It is a full HD camera. It is a great camera to use. And again, more than that, it has great professional features which you can then transfer and use in other places. Easy to shoot on an iPhone, yes. Composition and framing is exactly the same on this, yes, but knowing these extra knobs and buttons, learn the Ferrari, because with a Ferrari you can go a lot faster and it's a lot more fun. There you go. So thanks for watching. I'm Dr. Gary Gould. We'll see you again.